Hey, this is Josh, and I wonder if you've ever felt this before. As a Christian, there's been times when even my best spiritual practices couldn't seem to kind of quiet my internal noise. Like how do I get the volume knob to turn this noise down? All this stuff that's going on inside of me. I felt powerless to it at some point. There's the pains that I've tried to avoid, there's the failures that I've tried to fix. But even though I've had those spiritual practices, they just kind of kept resurfacing. And in the process of resolving that, I didn't lose my faith or anything. I felt kind of like the disciples responding to Jesus when he says, "Are you going to go anywhere?" They're like, "Where are we going to go, man? You alone have the words of life." I felt like that, so I didn't lose my faith, but I wondered, like, if God's kindness is to bind up the brokenhearted and it's the role of community and engaging with Him that heals, is meant to heal, why do I still feel so tangled up inside? Like, why is this there? And so I didn't give up on God, and I didn't give up on myself, and I didn't give up on others, but I wondered, like, is this it? Is this really it? And if you've ever felt that way for yourself, whatever that looks like for you, something in there resonates with you. One, tell me because that means I got to be less lonely. Two, you're not crazy. And so what I hope to do in the next few minutes here is show you the way forward to find relief and healing and freedom so that you can develop beyond like surface level life and experience deep and lasting intimacy with God and with others. Give you a bit of an introduction to who I am. Like I said, my name is Josh, and there's a time where I had just finished these 2 years of a very intense ministry school. And at the same time, I was working for this adventure ministry mixed on top of that for like 6 seasons at this time. And I had so many just really wonderful, incredible encounters with God through adventure and being in the ministry school. And it's this really a time of like really powerful bonding experiences with God and with others along the journey. But when it ended, I kind of stepped back into real life, and it felt like the foundation that I'd anticipated being there just wasn't there. And that was pretty disorienting for me. I thought I'd done all this spiritual work. Why was I still dealing with all this internal noise that was still there? Like there's the tangle of feelings and the thoughts that they kind of keep me from real depth of connection with God and with other people. And deep down, like there's this like, man, I want relief from that. I want peace inside of me, not the chaos. And so I longed for the freedom. And there was habits and patterns within that accompanied it that I didn't want there. And so I was like, how do I get free from this? How do I heal from this? I don't want this to keep sabotaging my life and the people I care about. And so what I came across there was a lot of different spiritual practices that really did serve me pretty well. You have different kinds of prayer, different ways to engage in prayer, different ways to engage scripture, different ways to engage worship, both individually and corporately. I really came to love my rule of life and Sabbath and invested in community. And all these things, they really served me well. But eventually it was kind of like they seemed to just be on the surface of something deeper. It's kind of the way I've been thinking through it. So not bad, they're good. They just weren't touching the ache beneath it all. And I kept like doing these right things, but it didn't seem to bring me to this freedom and this redeemed life that I thought was available. And so this all shifted when one day I'm driving and I'm listening to podcasts while I'm driving. And so I have a friend of mine, he sends me this podcast, and essentially it's this podcast summarizing this book called The Critical Journey. And basically the authors in this book, they talk about these 6 stages of the life of faith. And I could see myself in stages 1 through 3. That was pretty obvious. But at age 4, I'm like, oh, there's like an open door here for me, like this looming open doorway for me to walk through into stage 4. And what stage 4 is we call the inward journey, or the journey inward. And this is where you venture underneath your skin to honestly and genuinely face your pain and your doubts and your questions and the unresolved parts of your story. And it's not to be stuck there, like it's not to go live in that space, but it's to let God meet you and heal you in those deeper ways. And I learned also that the risk of avoiding that journey, the inward journey, is stuck in this like surface level stages of maturity. And so in that moment, I'm driving, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm learning all this, I'm going, oh, that's where I'm still at that stage 3 to 4 cusp, and now it's time to transition and open and walk through that doorway into stage 4. And I didn't initially. And it makes sense because all the things around me are designed to keep me from really going on that inward journey. My culture doesn't really want to do that. My wiring, I'd rather just go have another mountaintop experience. That'd be awesome. And even some parts of Christian community, they don't really encourage that inward journey. It's kind of scary. It's daunting. What's down in there? We don't know, And so I didn't go initially. Because I didn't, the different feelings and thoughts that are swirling around inside that are keeping me disconnected in the ways that I don't want to be, they stayed. And so when I talk about what I call them crazy feelings and crazy thoughts. When I talk about the feelings, what I'm getting at here is I'm talking about depression and anxiety and control and apathy, self-pity, toxic shame, sensuality without heart. These are the kinds of things that I'm overwhelmed with in the moments that I most want connection. And when I talk about crazy thoughts, this looks like this kind of ping pong match between these two sides here. You have I'm rationalizing and I'm justifying and I'm spinning a narrative, or I'm ping ponging to like this self prescribed or other prescribed judgment or blame or accusation, all in an attempt just to keep me safe. And what I know is like, I know grace and mercy are available for me in those moments, but it's like they're somewhere out there and they're not transcendently experienced in the here and now. And so because of that, I remained disconnected from what God wants to do in me and what God wants to do through me. And when that happens, my core values fall to the wayside. And I kind of, for me personally, I slip into this arrogant insecurity. And it kind of takes its reign in me. Pretty nasty, to be honest. So what I did is I started asking this question in that space. I said, hey, what if I get that? Like, what if this wasn't brokenness that's in me? But what if this was an invitation to go deeper with God? Like, what if on the other side, I could actually I could actually experience the healing and the transformation, the peace, the freedom, the intimacy with God that I'm looking for, the kind that I've tasted some of, but I hadn't quite lived into yet. What if I could have that with other people? Like, I've glimpsed it, but what if it was through the inward journey that I could get to it? So that's how I began my inward journey. And it goes on, we go a few years later, and I meet this guy named Dr. Jake Smith Jr. And I spent a bunch of years learning from him, not just as a participant in his spiritual formation programs or in one-on-ones with him, of which I did a lot. But eventually, I apprenticed under him for a full year. And in that time, it was this really clunky journey of moving from theory to like embodied transformation. But it gave me a lot of language and tools and things that have been really healing for me, but the ones that I also still use today. And my insights that I've gotten, they haven't just come from Dr. Jake. They've come through years of therapy. They've come through countless books and podcasts and like real life moments of wrestling with God in my own story. And then also sitting across from other people and helping them wrestle through theirs. And through all of that, what I've discovered and what I come to like very firmly believe is that there are two consistent invitations to the journey inward, and they're ones that none of us can avoid. And those invitations are pain and failure. Now, this isn't some cheap microwaved like little lesson here, This ain't your grandma's Sunday school. What this is like years in the making. This has been costly. This is something that's been very fruitful discovery, one of the most fruitful, but not without effort, not without sacrifice to it. Now, the reason for this is pain and failure have the potential to either deform us on one hand, or they have the potential to help us become the very things that form Christ in us. And the hard fact is that we're going to face pain and failure in our futures regardless. That's what's given. But the thing that is not a given is whether or not they actually serve to usher in a deeper life with Jesus and others or not. See, when we don't face them, they have the potential to destroy our God-given sense of unearned love and identity, and that can lead to all sorts of unhealthy behaviors, and emotional reactivity, and spiritual disconnection. Not so great. However, when we do face them with God and with others, they become these doorways into living as our true selves, first off, and we become wounded healers with humble confidence and deeper communion. They prepare us. They not just to heal from what's behind, but to walk through future pain and failure with grace, without drowning in those crazy feelings and thoughts. And so this is what the invitation to the inward journey is. Not to avoid the hard stuff, but to be formed through it and experience life to the full with God and with others. So what I'd like to offer you is a simple way for you to begin your own inward journey. I'm calling it the three you inside of you pathways. And basically it's essentially these three pathways that you can start walking for yourself to experience relief and to experience healing, to experience freedom. And the thing I want to say is like, don't worry. You don't have to go to the depths super deep right away. You don't have to fully go into all of this. That might be really daunting, but you can start to tiptoe your way in because God is gentle and he's kind and he won't force you anywhere. And it would be kind to offer yourself the same gift. So with that, let's dive into the three you inside you pathways. First up, what does it mean to go inward, actually? Like, what does that actually look like or mean? And so the great language for this is we know our physical anatomy. We have a respiratory system, circulatory system, skeletal systems, but we also have, as Dr. Jake calls it, we have a spiritual anatomy. Now, we get this from the Shema. So if you've all heard this before, probably. This is love the Lord your God as your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And that's followed by this other one, love your neighbor as yourself. But what we see is represented in each of those four pieces there is four different systems that have to do with our internal being. So let me show you. So this is our spiritual anatomy. Each of these four are a system. You have your heart system here, which represents your feeling and your needing. We have our soul system, which represents our being, our dreaming, and our envisioning. We have our mind system, which is our center for thinking and learning and judgment. Then we have our strength system, which is a center for doing and working and practicing. And what this matters so much is the greatest fractures in our lives can happen when one of these systems dominates while the others are neglected. I'll give you an example. There was a moment I was living dominantly for my mind, and which I can do sometimes, and I'm in an argument with my mom, and in the middle of the argument, she blurts out, "Josh, you're being an ass." And she was right. That's the hard part about it. She was right. Because I was all up in my mind trying to logic my way through this argument. There's no heart in that. And it was fracturing our relationship. Now, of course, that's only just a pattern. That's the taste of like the bigger fracture that's happening. Because when my mind and my strength are dominant, what I do is I ignore my heart and my soul. And in that, I become rigid. I become controlling, become controlling. I'm manipulative. I blow up relationships, and I run my own life and others' lives into the ground. It's not very good. And the bigger problem here is unfortunately our culture, we celebrate mind and strength above everything else, right? But spiritual maturity, what that looks like is an integration between all four, making sure they're all attached, they're all nourished, and they're all working together. And that's what actually allows us to face pain and failure well. Because what I needed in that moment and what I've needed in my journey here isn't more information or more effort. What I've needed is to learn to live with more heart and soul. Which leads us to pathway number 2, which is, well, how do we live with more heart and soul? Now, because most of us don't need to be inspired or learn something new, begin a new spiritual practice as good as they are, what we need to do is to learn to live with healthy hearts. And funny enough, scripture gives us this interesting paradox. It says the heart's deceitful. Most people are familiar with that one. But it also says the heart's a tree of life. So if both of those are there, how can they both be true? Which is the wonder of scripture, right? So, I think it's because of this. The heart isn't either good or bad. What it is powerful. And if ignored, because it's so powerful, it deceives. But if we nurture it with reverence, it leads to life. So that starts by learning what to do with our heart's feelings, which brings us to pathway number 2, which is feelings work. So in this, I'd like you to think of your feelings as friendly guides. So what they do is they reveal what our heart needs. And if we get those needs met in healthy ways, they can guide us towards healing and connection and life. Now, if you want that painful noise internally to quiet down, the feelings, the thoughts that are swirling around there, you need to learn to take care of your heart. So here's a few examples for how that works. When I'm feeling lonely, it shows me that I need connection, and it leads me to intimacy. When I'm feeling hurt, it leads me to comfort, or it doesn't lead me to comfort, but it shows me that I need comfort, and it opens the door to healing. When I'm feeling shame, it reminds me of my limitations, and what that does is lead me to humility. And when I'm feeling fear, it shows that I need help and protection, and that makes wisdom and faith available. Finally, sadness shows me what I'm missing, and that allows me to grieve and to accept. When I begin to learn to feel what I feel and to bring it before God and others, it changed everything. Let me tell you, because now I can bring all of me, not just the good, not just the bad, just what's in there. I can bring all of me and experience intimacy that's beyond rhetoric and it's beyond actions alone. And it's very clumsy, and that's okay. The caveat is that you can't do it by yourself. And that's what pathway number 3 is all about. How do we not do it by ourselves? Your heart's feelings and needs, the connection you need, the comfort, protection, delight, etc., they can't be met on your own in isolation. I had someone critique me the other day for talking about, Project Self is all about you. You can't, it's not about isolation. I'm like, literally the whole point of this is not do it in isolation, Your heart's needs must be met by God and by others. But most people don't know how to offer what we actually need, which is why this is so hard. And honestly, I didn't either at first. And so I'm guilty with the rest of us. So when someone shares something that's vulnerable, we can often joke about it We can bypass it with encouragement. Oh, you're going to be fine. Or we can give advice, like, well, you know what you should do? You should do this, right? But the problem is none of that actually builds intimacy. The heart doesn't need that. It just needs to be known. So what we really need, and what we're unknowingly asking for, is what Dr. Dan Allender calls attunement. Now, attunement is when someone does these four things. When someone works to see you, when someone works to feel with you, when someone works to suffer with you, and when someone works to delight in you. What most people are searching for when they say, I want to feel more connected to God. I want to experience the healing that He has to offer and that I can get with others, but I can't seem to find it. What people are saying they're looking for when they say that is they're saying, I want to know that God sees me and feels with me and suffers with me and is delighted in me. That's what we're longing for. And when you experience God and other people attuning with you, they're giving you what your heart didn't have in your past pain and in your past failure. That's actually what your heart longs for deepest anyway. So those are your three pathways. You've got spiritual anatomy, you've got feelings work, and you've got attunement. Very important. It's not abstract. It's not just emotional, right? This is spiritual. It's relational. This is personal. This is deeply communal. It's essential. And I promise you, as you begin to walk these three pathways, even if they're imperfect, you'll start to experience what your heart has been aching for all along. The relief, the healing, the freedom. You'll have intimacy with God. You'll have it even with yourself. You'll know yourself. And you'll know others, and they'll know you. And that's what's real, lasting, and life-giving. So for myself, when I began to walk these personally, I went from being like, I'm not stuck, or I am stuck, I'm stuck over here, to I'm not stuck anymore. And my painful life experiences, my failures, they didn't hurt like they used to. They didn't derail my life. They didn't define me. They might still happen, but not the same. I've experienced real relief and healing from the emotional weight that I was carrying. That internal chaos that was going on inside has been quieted. It'd be unrealistic to say it's completely gone, but it's no longer in control, which I'm pretty stoked about. And I've stopped living in cycles of fear and shame and overthinking and being hypercritical. And with that, I know how to walk through grief and through loneliness and through hurt. And I can even face my anger. And I found the peace that I thought was a bit of a silly pipe dream. Oh, go get some peace. It's like, no, I've experienced peace. I used to feel pressure and confusion, and that isn't there like it used to be, And what that is all kind of open up and allowed is like meaningful, healthy relationships. It's no longer surface level, no longer codependent. I have the freedom I need from reactive patterns and habits, and those things don't sabotage my life like they used to. There's overall this greater sense of clarity and of stability and of freedom in my relationship with God and with others. And like I said, even with myself too. Now that's like that's part of it, right? I'm stuck. Now I'm not stuck anymore. But there's something even deeper beneath that. And what it is that I've come home to who I really am. And I'm here for others now as well. Because I'm not defined by those things. I'm not defined by what has or hasn't happened, or what I've done or what I haven't done. And I've begun to live from my true self. So who I am as created and known by God, it was buried beneath the surface of all that stuff, that pain and the failure. And because of that, my identity is no longer built on the striving or the control or the need to prove anything. Like, I'm like, no, I know who I am, and it's not that thing. That might come up sometimes, but I know how to separate these, and I know how to live as my true self. Overall, it's like I see my life as a story being written by God. It's not random. It's not wasted. I think the best way to say it is there's this one day in a therapy session with my counselor. His name's Justin, and it was a really good session, but it wasn't one that was marked by any sort of like breakthrough or anything. And I ended this session by saying to him, I was like, man, I just love that our sessions feel less like therapy and more like spiritual direction. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Good. He smiles at me really softly, but he's serious, gentle and kind and lighthearted. And he goes, of course, man. He's like, it's all just endless spinning otherwise. And he goes, that's pointless if it doesn't lead us back to God. When he said that, I was like, man, time stopped. Like, whoa, like I need to hear that again. And that's because I've done this work for so long to know that if we want to just go looking for healing for the sake of healing, or going deep for the sake of going deep, or we can stay stuck in Project Self, endlessly trying to fix the next thing. Like, we can do that, but it's kind of aimless and pointless. We're not really after insight for itself or even healing for its own sake. What we're after, if you hear me say one thing, it's this. It's healing for the existential pain of being a human apart from God. It's coming home. It's coming home to God, to who we actually are for the sake of others, which is a really key part of it. Okay, take a breath. I know it's covering a lot. In here, if something resonates, I hope you feel some clarity, some hope, some a little less overwhelmed. I really hope that that provides like a doorway, an opportunity for you to walk through. And if it does, what I've done is I've put together the full version of the 3 you inside you pathways. And it's a free resource. I'm calling it that. And what it'll do is it'll walk you through those 3 pathways that I just talked about, even more in depth. And it'll give you a way to begin to walk them in less than 10 minutes a day. There's a simple exercise after each one of them. So we'll go on spiritual anatomy, and I'll expand on all of that. And that'll help you name the fractures that are in your life so that you can meet God in healing them. And I'll also give you this, I call it a stupid simple framework for understanding your heart's feelings and needs. I didn't develop this. This is coming from other research. It's really good. And just using that on a regular basis, very simple, will help you get your heart's needs met in a really easy way. Maybe not easy way, but like you'll understand what's going on, which will help you develop that part of you so you can live with more heart. And I'll also show you how to invite God into your story and to enter into their story through attunement. And you'll be able to kind of experience the connection that you're looking for, longing for. I'm not guaranteeing anything's going to be simple and it's not going to be clumsy. You're not going to have to figure it out. You will. But this resource is built so that you can begin to walk it and it's there available for you. And if you're someone who's like, man, I'm just ready to go deeper, what I'm also doing is I'm offering this free compass call session to help you kind of jumpstart the journey. I'm calling it a compass call because our heart and soul are kind of like a wilderness. They're beautiful, they're vast, they're dangerous, and you can get lost in there, but they're good. We want to experience that. So this compass call is designed to kind of get you bearings on your compass and know how to walk forward inside of these 3 pathways. And so that's available for you. And if you're seeing this, I believe there's going to be a button on the page where you can click over to see all 3 of those pathways. There'll also be buttons in there to do a compass call with me. And I hope that's helpful. I hope it really opens up some opportunities for you. And I'd love to connect with you further beyond this. If you have any questions, want to reach out, you're free to do that. Otherwise, check out the pathways, book a call, and I'll see you when I see you next. Thanks.